everybody, this is Bill again at the Heroes Table, and I figured we'd take a moment to talk about modeling. This is as most people know, a 1/350th Polar Lights USS Enterprise. Good buddy of mine, Matt Levine, gave this to me like 50 years ago. I've actually had it for a long time and been kind of scared to put it together, mainly because of the painting and all that sort of stuff, and primarily because of these gigantic decals. I never wanted to put the decals on it and have them peel up in a year or two, but I never really could understand how you could seal these things. So I did some experimentation, actually ruined one of the saucers of this thing already, and luckily the folks over at Polar Lights were nice enough to take pity on me and send me another one. So I found out a few things. One thing about me is I don't like spending a ton of time on stuff, and I also like doing it affordably. So I've been hearing all these different people tell how you had to put floor wax on this thing, then you had to put the decals down with some different mixtures to make the decals get soft and sink into the cracks of it and all this stuff. I really didn't want to do that because I figured I'd just mess this thing up. So what I did was I did some experimenting, and I found a product that's really, really good for what I'm doing anyway. It's called Krylon Crystal Clear, and it's acrylic coating 1301. And it really works well. It's a gloss. I mean, you can get a matte finish. I like gloss because even though I'm doing detail on this thing, I'm trying to keep it as a display model. So I want it where I can wipe it down, clean it off. But the process is, once you get all your coloring on these things the way you want, you put a coat of this clear down, and then you put your decals on. I just put the decal on, get it nice and dry, and then put another coat of this on it. And on the big decals, if you really load it down with this stuff, it may wrinkle a little bit, but when it dries, it gets glass slick. And you know, I don't see any need to really push it down into these cracks. Once you put a couple of coats of paint on here, the grid lines don't really stand out that much. And I tend to like the grid lines because it helps you place the decals. So anyway, this is, and the other thing is I'm not doing this Canon. What I'm doing is trying to do something that's, before Captain Pike. I figure no one's seen that, so I can play around with the coloring and stuff. I actually, my first go around on this thing, I was going to do it totally 50, so I put a fin on the back of it, and I was going to paint it all silver, and that's part of what screwed it up, because all these silver paints got on it, and they just turned into goo and started dripping off of it, and it was a terrible mess. But then, I decided to go back with the gray, and that's another thing, the color I'm using on this thing. I picked two colors, and if you look at it close, you can see some variation. I'm doing panels that are lighter, and the lighter panels are in a color called, it's a Tamina AS5 Light Blue Luftwaffe. And it looks gray, but light blue Luftwaffe. Actually, this color is almost exactly the color of the kit when you get the kit. So if you're trying to use the greener color, I don't really think that looked all that good. This color looks really great on it. And then I'm using an AS18 light gray Tamina color again, and I'm doing all this rattle can, and what I've been doing is I've been doing some of these panels in a metallic, kind of a pewter metallic that's actually a car paint, duplicolor car paint. And I've used 2 or 3 different cans of it because it's what I had around the house. And to make it a little more subtle, I'm going over it again with the base color, which is my gray, and just spritzing across it until I get it. That's almost like you're using an airbrush. But I also wanted to show you how I'm putting some detailed lines in these different parts of the kit. What I'm actually doing is taping everything off to do the 2 colors, and then I'm actually using this tape to lay along here, and I'm just taking a regular number 2 pencil and just drawing the grid lines on it. And to get it, I'm actually doing smears and smudges, as you can see here, and I've got some along here. And to do that, I'm just taking some graphite, putting a little bit here, and just taking my thumb and smearing it. And that looks to me, that's an easy way to do it. I'm not having to use an airbrush, and I'm getting the same effect, I think. And then you put a coat of clear on it, put your decals on it, put another coat of clear on it, and you can set this thing up for ultimate fun and endless voyages. The other thing I wanted to show is I went out and bought a Tenacontrol's digital fan blade mechanism. Didn't want to put the motor in there, and part of the reason for that is that in addition to my buddy Matt giving me this kit many years back, he also gave me his unobtainium Enterprise, which he and I had worked on this thing for years. The resin was bad on it, and actually when he gave it to me, I salvaged some parts off of it, which I used in our big 3-foot fiberglass model of the ESS Electra that we used in a film that we made called Matt Mercury, available now on Amazon.com.
You could save the Earth. You could save the Earth.
As you may now surmise, all hope is lost. Please fasten your seatbelts and refrain from moving about the planet. This may be a very bumpy ride.
The Earth is gone, along with all the rules you're so attached to. You're in uncharted territory now, whether you like it or not.
Matt Mercury!
So if you think this is fun, listening to me drone on, imagine listening to me drone on with a big rubber head on, and that's what you'll get with Matt Mercury. So go out and get that. But anyway, parts of the unobtainium Enterprise I pulled apart to use in my Polar Lights model, and one of the main parts that I used, or I'm going to use, is the nacelle cap. The unobtainium nacelle cap is really kind of a neat thing. They've somehow or other put a prism in here, and it's a resin piece that fits inside of another piece. And strangely enough, the unobtainium Enterprise was a little smaller than 1/350th because this fits underneath the dome of the Polar Lights cap. So I figured when I put these lights in here, it'll give it kind of a neat effect. I'm going to put some other colors on here and do some things, which I'll show you in part 2. But anyway, I finally figured out how to make this thing go together. And oh, one thing that I really enjoy doing is I wanted to put all these little dots in here. I like this end cap for some reason. I just always thought it looked like, you know, they talked about rockets. I figured this was like the rockets. But the way to do this is just get one of those ink pens. I actually got it wasn't an ink pen, it's a oil-based paint pen. And you just, with a little bit of control, you can go in here and do it perfectly. Because the way to do this perfectly is to not do it disperfectly. Actually do it perfectly. Okay, I'm obviously running out of steam. We'll see you next time on The Hero's Table.